Well, hello. I wear my scarf today and make me a better photographer than you. Poof, I take a picture, it's like magic. Yeah, I'm wearing a t-shirt today to let you guys know that I do have the heat on. No, not really. I'm actually freezing, but I am wearing a t-shirt just to mix things up. It's Tuesday after the holiday, and before I get to the Q&A, and before I say thank you to anyone who sent in questions, and also I'm just one guy with one opinion, so take it for what it's worth. Plenty of reason to ignore me. That's my wife tells me that pretty much every day. Woke up this morning, had 7 email in my inbox because over the holiday, I went back in and I became even more merciless than I was than a couple weeks ago when I deleted pretty much every email news list I was on, and then I started rebuilding. And it's awesome because when you wake up and you have like 5, 6, 7 email, some of them are YouTube comments. It's pretty easy to get through your email and then you realize, oh, this is how it's supposed to be, kind of efficient. And so, but there was one thing in my inbox, which was an email newsletter from someone you might recognize from a film I made a couple of months ago, my Books I Love series. I did a film about Kodak City by a photographer named Catherine Luttenegger. Now, I was able to meet her in Australia a few years ago. She's very cool, very nice, and a very accomplished photographer. Let me spell this for you. Catherine with a C. I don't think I need to spell that, but her last name I probably do. Luttenegger, Leutenegger. Now, if you're going to sign up for an email newsletter, this is one I would sign up for. This is a real photographer. And now, let me back up. I know what you're thinking. I just offended some people. A lot of folks in the online world are pretty sensitive about all this. Really sensitive when I use the word real photographer. When I say real photographer, I just mean someone who's engaged with the actual industry of photography. That means book publishers, gallerists, museums, doing commissions, doing editorial assignments, doing commercial work, doing advertising work, maybe even involved in the grant process in the photo community. That's what I'm talking about. What I like about the newsletter is she does not bombard me with it. It comes at a good pace. I don't even know if it's once a month. I would guess it's maybe once a quarter. You get this email. I stopped everything I was doing. My wife said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm looking at this newsletter." And you flip through it and you realize the amount of accomplishments that she's had since the last time she sent the newsletter. It's very simple, it's image heavy, there's a little bit of copy, but it basically highlights all of her successes as a photographer, but also a little bit of the behind the scenes things with some of these. And the other thing I love about it is Kodak City is what I would call a book of reportage, but what the work that she's doing now and the range that she displays in the newsletter is really impressive. That's impressive. Someone like that, and I'm about to do a film called Plus Plus Plus, about combining 3 people that 2 are alive and 1 is dead. And if I was gonna craft, like Terminator build a modern photographer, I would steal from those 3 people. And these people, like Catherine and some of these people that I'm gonna mention in this upcoming film, if they wanted to, they could do a YouTube channel. It probably wouldn't get as many views as a lot of the YouTube channels that are out there in the photo space because they wouldn't be talking about tech and cameras and nonsense. They would be talking about like projects like this. And I really don't think that there's that much of an audience for that kind of discussion on YouTube. The world that she lives in and the world that I lived in as a photographer for all those years, this is not a world where everyone wins a trophy. The online world, everyone wins a trophy every time, right? That's just the culture that we are in now. And the thing about the world that she's in and the world that I was in and some of these other people that I'm going to feature in this film, you might win a trophy and then you might lose one 6 times in a row and then you might win another one. And that's the reality. It's very rare that you meet someone that over a 10, 15, 20-year time frame in professional photography doesn't have ups and downs. Ebbs and flows. The industry changes, desire of what clients want changes, technology changes. Some people are able to keep up with it, all of it, through a very extensive professional team. And others, and I would throw myself into the second category, were people that had successes and then fallbacks, and successes and fallbacks. Now, I didn't do myself any favors because I changed what I was doing as my primary focus about every 4 or 5 years. And I did that because otherwise I just would never have lasted in photography. If I did photojournalism for 35 years, I don't think I would be in front of you right now, and I definitely wouldn't be happy, and I would probably be doing something entirely different. So I did photojournalism for 6 or 7 years, then I did editorial, then I did weddings, then I did stock, then I did portraiture for 7 years. So I mixed it up. That's not a great technique if you want to get super commercial successful, because a lot of editors and agents want to view you in a drop-down menu. They see your name pop up in front of them and they do the drop-down menu and they go, oh, that person's the guy who shoots tabletop food with 4x5 and he's really good. And they want to keep you in that little funnel, that little drop-down, because it's easy for them to then categorize and classify people. And if someone like me came along and they're like, well, I know, wait a minute, that's the documentary guy. No, that's the portrait person. Well, but he also did weddings, and weddings is a kiss of death in that world for the most part. And so it's a weird thing. But Catherine is a good person to follow if you're going to look for an email newsletter. I got it. I was very impressed. I will continue to follow that newsletter. I am not deleting her newsletter coming to me. It was a nice, warm welcome on a Tuesday morning when none of us, be truthful, be honest, you jackals, none of us want to go back to work. Q&A. Here we go. Brace yourself. This could get a little ugly. Question number 1. The difference between vernacular, vocabulary, terminology between make photographs and take photographs. I mentioned this a long time ago, and some people got furious with me, saying that this was like ridiculous and that there was somehow some weird condescending angle, or you had to be some guy who wears a scarf to use the term make photographs. I get it. I actually do. I get it. I do. Okay, not really. No, here's the thing. Who gives a crap? You want to say make, you want to say take, go ahead. But there is a difference in one regard. If you shoot landscapes, who cares? If you shoot old buildings, who cares? Old cars, who cares? Urban abstract landscapes void of people, who cares? Inanimate objects, who cares? Street photography doesn't matter because you're not talking to people for the most part. Some street photographers do, but a lot of people don't, which is why they engage with street photography. They can go out and just randomly snap people who have no idea they're being snapped, and they don't really want that engagement. I get it. For whatever reason, for me, which is completely counter to my personality, I only did people-based projects. I only really want to do people-based projects, and I want to do projects where I'm not only talking to the people, but I am like intimately involved with them. That's what I like, and it is a royal pain because it's so slow and so complicated, and you have to get access, and it takes so much time. It's a problem. But here's the thing. Again, landscapes, old buildings, urban abstract landscapes, doesn't matter if you say make or take. The difference comes when you photograph people. When you are doing a formal portrait of someone, whether that is a 7-year-old or a 70-year-old, there is a dramatic difference between saying, hey, I'm going to take a picture, or looking at them, sitting down, having the dialogue and say, let's make some pictures. Make feels like a collaboration. You would not think this makes a huge difference. It does make a huge difference when you're photographing people, because hey, can I make a picture? Can I make your picture? Let's make some pictures together. You would never say, let's take some pictures together. That puts it all in one-sided camp. I'm going to take pictures of you. If you have not done formal portraiture, and that could mean taking an hour and setting up lights and putting someone in a chair like Karsh used to and doing that, or it could mean you're photographing a CEO, you have to get in and you have a grand total of 10 minutes and you've got a shoot available, and the CEO said 10 minutes, but he may give you 2. He could be a total jerk. You might not actually be able to talk to him. You might have to talk to his lackey, who then is an interpreter. Believe it or not, I'm not joking about that. You'll have some people who you cannot address directly, and you have to talk to a lackey, and then the lackey's standing 2 feet away. Then the lackey tells the person that you're photographing. It's ridiculous. That's where make and take has a difference. It does, and I can tell you this with certainty from 7+ years of full-time portraiture for a living, professional portraiture, where I was being commissioned and then the work was ending up at a stock agency that then syndicated it. I had a worldwide exclusive with one agency that syndicated the work worldwide and did commercial sales from the same images, the same portraits I was making. And it makes a huge difference. I also had a period, literally in the last 5 years, I spent a year photographing CEOs, bigwigs, that kind of thing. It was a weird assignment for someone I really like, and it was very atypical from something I've ever do, but make and take makes a huge difference. But again, it depends on your genre and your subject matter. If you're staring at a landscape, You're not talking to anyone. It doesn't matter if you say, I'm going to formulate pictures. Whatever makes you happy and whatever allows you to make the pictures that you want, unless there's a human involved. To me, when humans get involved, that's where the stakes go up. This is where things get interesting, dicey, challenging in a way that you just can't replicate with urban abstract landscapes. That's why so many people shoot urban abstract landscapes, because it's easy. There's no entry point. There's no model release. There's oftentimes no location release. There's oftentimes no architectural release, even though there should be. And boy, if you try to sell those pictures to the wrong people, or that picture ends up in a certain space and you were standing in the wrong place. Let's say that, for example, and I know I'm rambling, but you know me now, that's my style. Let's say that you're in downtown LA and you are photographing a famous building and you're standing on the curb and then you sell that image. Not good. Depends on the famous building. Oftentimes, famous buildings have famous teams of lawyers who are searching for those images. And when they see it, and if you were on the curb, you're in their territory, and you better have an architectural release. Now, if you're in the street, you could be literally a foot away, but standing in the street, fair game. It's a weird thing. Complicated. One of the reasons why I don't work as a professional photographer anymore, it's only going to get worse. The last shoot I did as a professional, I left that shoot. Not kidding. Get ready to count. You're going to need more than one hand. I left that shoot with 7 model releases, and I still felt nervous. There were model releases for the humans involved. One of the humans came from divorced parents. I only had a signature from one parent who happened to be on the shoot. I had multiple location releases. I had multiple architectural releases, and I still felt nervous. And another photographer who reached out to me, who's a longtime friend and a really good photographer, way better than I was, who had a commercial studio in Manhattan for 25 years, he said to me, once he found out what I was doing with photography, he said, you're going to get sued. It's a matter, there's not even a remote chance that you're going to get out of this unscathed. You just better have a good legal team ready. And that was sort of towards the end of my career, and I'd already had some legal stuff in the past, and I was like, God, this just isn't fun anymore. So I moved on. Sob story. So happy I did. The second I quit photography, I loved it again, once again, so much more than I would have if I stayed in photography. Okay, question number 2, which I didn't number, and then I skipped, and then the one after this is number 2, which means that's actually number 3, which is going to throw me off, and then I'll do the whole thing wrong. Bear with me. Question number 2. Do you use an app to scheme the main bones of a project? And does this help it not get lost inside the project? I've never used an app for a project. I'm sure you could, and I'm sure there are really good apps for it. I've just never needed it. My projects tend to be pretty simple in nature. The one I'm working on now, which by the way, again, cue the ramble. I'm in the process of redesigning my site, as I've mentioned before. And one of the things I figured out today with the newsletter, I keep trying to think of what I'm going to put in the newsletter that would be of value to you to sign up for. What are you going to get in the newsletter that you're not going to get anywhere else? And I'm working on that. One is going to be physical things. You might be able to win something, or I'm going to give stuff away that I think would be interesting. And I think I have enough connections in the field to actually do this. And the other thing is I'm going to share some of the projects I'm working on, which I would normally never, ever do, because I would always wait until the project is done, regardless of how long it took, before I would share anything, because that's just the kind of school I grew up in, and that's what feels best to me. And what happens if I got halfway through and then I was like, this isn't good enough, and I quit, which I've done a few times before. So I think I'm going to share kind of specifics of some of the projects, and really not just the imagery, but the process behind how, why, and what I'm doing. And the fact that these are very different projects than anything I've done in the past. They're more conceptual projects, even though they are reportage style imagery, but there's a blend of things that I've never done before. So that's going to be in the newsletter. I've never used an app. The less screen time I have, the better. And also, using an app in the field means you need to have batteries charged. And I love pen/pencil and paper. I just love having a notebook that's dedicated to a project, and I just focus and work on that because I'm constantly writing and taking notes when I'm working on projects. So that's kind of what I've done. I've never done an app. Again, I have Notability on my iPad, which I really like, and I use that to script the films I have to do for blurbs. Like I wrote a script this morning when I got up. It's a 60-second script that I have to make a film about later today. I have to make 3 films today. This is not optimal, but that's just the way it is. So I've never done that, never used an app. Question number 3, how do I price my blurb books? This is a very simple question. And when I say blurb, you can substitute any other book company that you want or utilize. It doesn't matter. I price my blurb books very simple. I price them depending on what the book is. If it is a legit book, a commercial book for a client, I price it as high as I possibly can. I want to maximize the profit on that book. If I'm doing a book like my essay magazine, which I'm going to rebuild in MagCloud and put those out, I don't know, I might mark that up $1 or $2, or I may just sell it for the price it is. I have no intention of using that as a revenue stream. And if people want it, great, let them have it, pay the same price as me. I could put a little markup on it, but am I going to really make enough in the end for that to matter? Probably not. So I would just, price it super low, because that's not the point of the whole thing. Books for clients, Blurb books I've sold for $1,500 a piece. And it's funny because photographers will go absolutely crazy when I tell them that. That's impossible. No one would pay that much for a Blurb book. Yeah, they do. And they don't hesitate and they don't question. And here's the other little wrinkle in this, which is probably gonna rub some of you the wrong way. One of the things that you will hear if you work for a company like Blurb, or any other print-on-demand book publisher for that matter, that has a logo in the back of the book, to remove the logo, the Blurb logo from the book, you have to pay. And some people are rankled by that. Oh, I can't believe you have to pay that to remove the logo. Whatever. Your client is paying for it, not you. Photographers will say, well, I can't have the logo in the back, because if a client sees it, they will say, oh my God, this is a Blurb book and I could have done this myself. That's just like it's a dagger. It's a dagger to my heart. If a client can take your photographs and make a book that's as good or better than the book that you made for them, you kind of suck at bookmaking. That should never come into question. When I would do jobs for clients, I would always tell them, yeah, you're hiring me to shoot this, but as importantly, you are hiring me to edit this, because you don't edit pictures for the most part. Some clients do, depending on the type. Editorial, yes, they edit. Sometimes commercial, yes. But if you're doing commissions, especially private commissions or portraiture, those everyday people don't edit photo books. They don't edit photography. They just keep everything, and that's why their phones are full, and that's why their laptop junior pushes the laptop off the counter, and they lose 10 years of their family history. You are being paid to photograph, to edit, to sequence, and to design a book. That should never come into question. You could put, a major box store brand in the back, and they should look at that book and say, oh my God, I would have never been able to do this. That's the key. So price your books depending on the need. If you're just trying to put your work out and share it with people, and this is never going to be a huge revenue stream, yeah, again, you can mark things up a little bit, but just relax. And then make your profit when you're selling commercial books. Number 4, was that 4? 3, 4? Again, I messed up. I messed myself over by numbering these incorrectly. Number 4, this is kind of an interesting question. How do you get people to go along with an interview that wasn't intended to be promoted? I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I think what it means is that you want to interview someone and you don't think there's any commercial application for it. And then after the interview, you realize there's a commercial application for it. Is that really what you're asking? That's a good question if you are. I'm just going to take it that way. And the answer is you have to go back to that person and explain exactly what you're talking about. I did this and I didn't know there was a commercial application, but there is. And I think what you're saying in this interview is completely valid to this group of people, and I think we should release it. And again, you have to be prepared for someone to say no. People love saying no these days because oftentimes there is a misguided notion about how photography is being used and the revenue made from said photography. I've had this happen 1,000 times in the field, and it's been a gradual build from 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when at the time it rarely ever happened. Now it happens all the time. You can't be here, you can't photograph here, you can't photograph me because you're getting rich off of me. That I've heard over and over and over again. And that comes from a society who has been so utterly turned inside out by the internet and social media that people cannot think straight. They cannot look at what's in front of them and understand. They don't want to understand. And I've had this happen from law enforcement agencies, multiple law enforcement agencies. You can't be here. You're making a profit off of this. And when you say to people, look, this is a long-term project. It's a personal project. I'm not being commissioned. I'm losing money being in the field, and I will ultimately lose money. It actually makes it worse because they can't comprehend why you would do anything that doesn't make money. Again, a society turned inside out by the internet and social media that doesn't know which way is up anymore. So you just have to be honest. You have to be upfront. You have to explain in detail. You have to have your elevator pitch down well. You cannot ramble about what you do and who you are and what the project is. It has to be on point, very sharp. And then be prepared for no, because people are going to say no. And people are going to go sideways and they're going to get squirrely, because then their friends will get to them and say, oh, you should be making money off of that and you shouldn't let them do that. I've seen that happen again and again and again too. So it's getting hard out there. It's a perro como perro mundo. You know what I mean? It's a dog-eat-dog world. I butchered that, by the way. Can you tell that I am not a native Spanish speaker? I know, it's hard to believe. Okay, this is a good one. You're going to want to write this one down. This is, I believe, point 5. Can you recommend books on photography? And not photo books, books on photography. Someone wrote me this, and I responded to them, and then I thought, you know what? This is probably something to share with everybody. You probably already know about these books. Number 1, On Being a Photographer by David Hearn. On Being a Photographer by David Hearn. Number 2, Memories of a Dog, Daido Moriyama. Probably one of the most ripped off photographers in terms of all the youngins out there now in Asia trying to do street photography. The problem is Moriyama had something to say and still does, and does it in a way that's very unique, and has done it for a long, long time. So if you're copying him, and anyone who's on the know knows that you're copying him, so stop copying him. Do your own thing. Memories of a Dog, Daido Moriyama. Next book would be The Photographic Essay by Bill Allard. William Albert Allard. Allard. Famous National Geographic photographer, deliverer of one of the most, how do I put this, impactful, positive comments about my work I ever had. And I didn't even solicit it. It happened at an event. Imagine this. Imagine being in the woods, in a darkened hillside, in the middle of the night. Pitch black. It would have been pitch black were it not for the massive projection screen. Audience of people sitting in the dark. And oh, by the way, massive bonfire off to the other side. Bodies of work are being shown. Body of work of mine goes up, gets shown. What's cool about an event like this is the crowd, like a concert, the crowd will rumble and ebb and flow with the quality of the work. So my work goes up, they're showing it, crowd's rumbling. I'm like, that's kind of cool. So as I'm standing there, there's about 4 people to my right, all lined up like a movie poster where just the front half of their face is in front of the next person. So it's like this line of people, all Nat Geo people, one of whom I know. The body of work ends, the crowd goes nuts. The Nat Geo guy that I know looks over at me because he knew that was my work and he knew me, and he said something like, nice job or well done or whatever. At the end of the line is Allard, who's kind of like a hero. I've never spoken to him. I've never actually seen him in person until this event. And he looks over at me, and in only the way that Bill Allard can, he says, man, you sure know how to put space together. And I was like, that's the coolest compliment I've ever had. And thank you, I'll take that. His book was really good. Also, if you're gonna look for something cool, adventurous, not necessarily a lesson in how to take pictures or even the philosophy, but like the craziness of the photojournalism world, there's a book called The Bang Bang Club that's about South Africa and shooting in the townships and apartheid. And that's a tragic ending to that book, but it's a very interesting story. Also, Unreasonable Behavior by Don McCullen, one of the most famous war photographers of all time. Lindsay Adario's book, I think it's called This Is My Life, something like that. It's easy to find. Lindsay Adario, female photojournalist, very accomplished, very successful. That book did really well. Now, here's the thing. And I hate to have to add this in, because I'm gonna ruin some dreams right now. There's gonna be people out there that are gonna be devastated. I'm not a considered photography guy anymore. Don't let the scarf fool you. What I call considered photography. This is when you go to an event and there's people standing around and they got scarves on and they're all like in the hierarchy of the industry, and everyone speaks in like that art speak, photo art speak. It's like reading an artist statement and you get done with it and you go, what the hell did you just say? What does any of this mean? Just tell me something straight. That's what I want from an artist statement. Artist statements are horrible. For the vast majority of the time, even the people writing them will admit to you while they're writing them how ridiculous it is. That's what I call like the considered photography space. I have no patience for that anymore at all. I'd rather go ride my motorcycle. So I'm not necessarily looking, and the same applies for books and book publishing. I have a great respect for traditional book publishers because if you saw my shelf, and I've shown it before, I have hundreds and hundreds of their products. I like it. And for a book to come to fruition through the traditional channel, there are so many people and so much money and so much consideration put into that publication. That's why they're so good. I do appreciate that. But that's not the world I want to live in. I don't want to spend my life there. I don't want to have those conversations. I don't want to go to those parties. Again, fly fishing, ride my motorcycle, go running, do a bike tour. That's the kind of stuff I'd rather do. And yes, I love photography. And I still look at like a great photo essay. If it comes out somewhere, excellent. I would look at that. The last one I saw, which has now been a long time, was in the New Yorker. And that photographer I've never heard of, I think he's a young guy from somewhere in the States, who did an essay on the January 6th riot, I want to say, something like that, the insurrection, whatever you want to call it, wherever side of the fence, which way you're leaning. I think if you're leaning in either direction, you're flat out crazy, man. But that's just me. I'm going to get to that in a minute. I'm thinking of putting my podcast on YouTube and seeing how many subscribers I can lose in one podcast when we start talking about things like politics and COVID and all that. Oh, can't wait. But remember, YouTube, this thing we're doing right here, it's not that real. It's not that healthy. Why do you think so many YouTubers have mental health problems down the road? Because if this is your thing, if this is your only thing, that's not healthy. It's not. Now, luckily, I have friends and I have family who don't care about my feelings. And that's a good thing. And if I go too far over the line, I'm going to hear about it. And I'm going to hear about it relentlessly until I correct course. So if you've got friends and family like that, then go for it. Okay, question number 6. Does a Blurb book need full resolution scans? Yes. Here's the thing about scanning, and forget Blurb out of the equation. And oh, by the way, like I said before, anytime I use the word Blurb, you can substitute whatever company you want. I don't really care. When you are scanning a piece of film, you want to make one scan, ever, just one. You want a master scan at the highest quality possible that you can pay for and get away with. Could be an Imicon, could be a drum scan, could be a Epson V750 with a wet scan option, which is a royal pain in the ass, but it makes a great scan. You want to scan it one time. Think of your scans as raw files, an untouchable, indestructible file type until you export it. And then you can ruin that export and do whatever you want. You can do HDR on it. Yeah, you can. And everyone around you will go, ugh, don't do that. Please don't do that. But you can if you want to. But your raw file is untouched. That's what that original scan should be. Scan at the highest quality possible. And that way you can use it however you want and never have to go back and rescan that. Because scanning is a bottleneck. It's the reason why so many pros don't shoot film anymore, is because the scanning is too slow and too expensive. So if someone out there, I cannot believe this hasn't happened, even though film prices now are insane, someone has to make a good, affordable desktop scanner, like really good, for $35, $66, $67, $69. Like even that. You can take the 4x5 rock and twig people and you can throw them out and say, ha, don't want to scan your stuff. We're only going to stick to medium and 35. That would be amazing. I would probably buy one of those because then I would start sneaking some film back into the operation. And for all I know, there's something out there, but every time someone tells me there's something out there and I look at it, it sucks. So start with the largest scan. And when you're importing work into software, always err on the large side. You don't want the software to interpolate for you. You'd rather have more information, too much information, than not enough. Okay, number 6. What is the best length for a zine? And a zine, for those of you who don't know, is an informal magazine, or informal or underground magazine. They've been around for a long time, but they really came to prominence in the 1930s. There's 30,000 different zines published in America every year. And there's an entire global network based around the zine. And you're really starting to see zines for the first time in the last 12 years, I can say with certainty, you're starting to see them creep into the vernacular of many of people in publishing who prior to this would not have even really dreamed or spoken about it because they were considered too informal or inconsequential. But now you've got some of the best photographers in the world who are making zines, and it's a very fun thing. And zines are so easy to do. You can go to Kinko's, you can make them by hand, you can use Blurb, you can use any other company out there to make something informal. They're awesome. In terms of the length, there is no correct answer to that question. I am going to do an experiment And I've been thinking and dreaming about doing this for years, and I just haven't had the time to do it because it would require some actual real focus. And as you can see in my life, that's kind of hard to come by. You can do a zine with a single image. You can do a photo book with a single image and make something really, really good. And it doesn't matter if your zine is 20 pages or 60 pages, unless the physicality of the object is important. If the physicality of the object is a part of the experience, which it is for all of these, but if it's really built into the experience, you may have to increase your page count. You may have to change a cover type. You may have to change a paper type or a combination of all three to get it to the physicality that you're envisioning. But for most of us, like, I think you could do an 8-page zine and be totally fine. And I think when you talk about the modern attention span, 8 pages might be too much. Oh, great story for you. Ramble alert. Remember in Risky Business when he has the memo minder where he has the wooden box and he's like, your dad calls, your friend calls your dad and he's not home and he leaves a message and if you don't get it, he's gonna kick your ass, and you flick the little switch and it goes memo, memo, memo. You can do that now with Ramble. Oh, did I just totally space out on what I was gonna say? Oh no, here it is. So as you know me, I like to read. I'm sitting in a room the other day, 3 or 4 people in there, and I'm reading. 45 minutes, I read. Just very casually, nothing serious, 45 minutes read. One of the people in the room, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Nervous energy, up and down, on the phone, all 45 minutes. Phone's in their hand, and this the whole time. Flip, 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 flip. Nothing longer than a half second. I'm looking out of the corner of my eye. I'm watching. Flip, 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 flip. End of 45 minutes. This person turns to me, condescendingly, snarky. I can't believe you have time to read. I just don't have time to read. Don't have it. Too busy. Too much important stuff going on. So you know what I did? I went home. I took my little address book, took my pencil, crossed out. No más. No más. Roberto Duran, Los Manos de Piedras, said no más, and I said it too. That person, out. Done. Over it. Can't handle it. You got plenty of time to read. Turn off the internet. Turn off your social media. Question number 8. Is it okay to pair black and white images with color or insert a pair of black and white images into a color spread? The short answer is yes. The short answer is you can do anything you can dream up if there is a bit of rationalization as to why you're doing it. The same thing applies to all of the traditional aspects of photography. Photography is famous for having all these arbitrary rules. Can't do this, can't do that, can't do this, can't do this, can't do that. Yeah, you can. I built a book once with every single thing I was told never to do. Guess what? Best-selling Blurb book I've ever had. Most successful Blurb book I've ever had. Most talked about Blurb book I've ever had. You literally had to break the spine to see what I put in the gutter. Everyone loved it. So you can do anything you want. Color, black and white. It increases your degree of difficulty, no doubt, because the viewer is going to be like, what's going on? What? I was looking at something. I thought I knew where we were going. And now we took an exit and we're sitting in a roadside park. And these places are creepy. By the way, most of them in America now are closed. They've been closed forever. And the ones who aren't closed, you go in there and you go, kind of wish it was closed. I feel bad for foreigners who come here and have to deal with our interstate highway network, bathrooms, and food. It is depressing. There's no two ways about it. Okay. Question number, was that 9? Something like that. Don't hold it against me. I was never good in math. What do you think about NFTs? If I never heard the phrase, the expression, the analogy, whatever you want to call it, the abbreviation, NFT ever again, I would be perfectly happy. But don't think that means I'm down on NFTs. I'm actually not. I just don't care. Here's the thing about NFTs right now. Remember Clubhouse? Remember the Clubhouse app from 6-8 months ago? Where every single person in photography, especially every single person on social media, you gotta be on Clubhouse. Everyone's on Clubhouse. Clubhouse is the future. Clubhouse is the only way to go. You gotta be on Clubhouse. Clubhouse, Clubhouse, Clubhouse. Red Bull, Red Bull, Red Bull. You ever had a Red Bull? Heard anything about it in the last 3 months, 4 months? Nothing. Not one. Gone. I've not heard a single thing. And I don't know if Clubhouse is still out there. It probably is. And I thought that it actually had some legs. There were things about it I really liked. But it was hot, it's gone. NFTs are gonna be around. They're not gonna Clubhouse on us, but it has the smell of a get-rich-quick scheme right now. Not for everyone, but for a lot. Because as soon as someone makes a sale that's far beyond what it should be, the entire community goes, I want in on that. And so what I see is subpar work selling for insane money. That's going to peak and plateau and level off and come crashing back. But I think in the long run, NFTs are going to be around. I don't have any interest in NFTs and buying them or selling my work as an NFT. I just don't have any interest in selling my work. So I don't really care. But when I go on Twitter, because I have to go on Twitter, and it's just this ridiculous NFT conversation of one day someone's all in and the next day they're out and they're back in and they're out because they don't really know what it is and they're trying to figure out how they're going to get rich off of it. It's embarrassing. And so I don't really like the whole thing, but again, I'm not involved in it. It is what it is. I think there is a benefit to it because it's new and it presents something in a way that we haven't thought about before. That is probably the single most critical underlying factor here. And that's designed for people like me who are curmudgeons, who are kind of stuck. Because it's anything that comes along that makes you contemplate and ponder something that you've known and experienced so intimately for so long is a good thing. And it may take you off and it may rankle you and it may force you to go underground for a period of time until you come back. I'll give you a perfect example. Conceptual art photography, legitimate conceptual art photography. I bagged on that for 30 years. I was like, these hacks don't know what they're doing. They can't photograph. That's why they're doing conceptual art, because you look at the work and you go, it's not good. That's my mistake. That's me being an idiot, me being ignorant, me not understanding what was happening there. Now I have an understanding of conceptual art photography. I think it's one of the most interesting genres left in photography. The genres that I came up through, the genres that I wanted to be a part of, they're for the most part gone. Those industries are gone. They are a fragment, a fraction of what they were before, and I don't ever see them coming back. Conceptual art photography to me is freedom. It is freedom to say, what is actually happening in my brain and how do I convey this to people I don't know? And why would it be important to them? And maybe even my straight hardcore reportage stories could be better told in conceptual form. That's what NFTs, the benefit of them today for me, is me saying, I'm not interested. And then the other half of my brain, which is granted not very big, saying or asking, why are you not interested in that? Is it just because you don't want to sell, or is it something else? Is it new? Is it threatening? Are there people involved in NFTs who are having success that you don't like? And is that flavoring your opinion? All of those things factor in. So NFTs are going to be here. It's very interesting to me to see how companies are going to work NFT into their offerings, which I think is interesting. And also remember, the delivery of a file digitally opens up that file to an audience that would never exist in any other form. And that's an interesting thing. We're only at the tip of the iceberg there. So I say positive on NFTs, even though personally I don't really have any engagement. Question number 10, which I guess should be 11 because it was about the Leica M11, which is a camera that came out, I want to say last week. By all measures, that camera looks fantastic. 60 megapixels. There's some sort of weird double or triple sensor thing in there, and you can also shoot at like 18 and 36 megapixels if you don't need 60. It's a Leica body. It's lighter. I think they got rid of the base plate. I think it holds 2 cards. No, it has internal storage, so you can shoot and have it record to a card, and then also internal storage. That's, for anyone who's a pro who's got stuff on the line you cannot lose. That's a really nice, reassuring thing to know it's in 2 places automatically. Look, again, there's something, and I will share this with you. I am packing for a trip right now. And my camera backpack that I'm taking is so packed and overloaded because I'm doing stuff on this trip I would normally never do as a photographer, and I've got responsibilities that I would normally never have. So I have to cover a lot of different things on the trip. So I need stuff that I can shoot motion with. I need stuff I can shoot underwater. I need stills. I need my journal. I need my audio recorder. My bag is packed. And I got a little bag the other day, just a little sling bag that was used at somebody's house and they didn't want it, so I took it. And it has like 3 little slots. And I was like, still camera with a 50, binoculars, audio recorder. I was like, can I imagine going on this upcoming trip with just that and how happy I would be? Now, I could do that, but if I did it, I wouldn't get what I need on the trip because I need a long lens, I need the underwater stuff, I need all this other stuff. So the M11 is an amazing camera, I'm sure. I'm sure it's being reviewed by every non-photographer on the planet. The people who get early access to these things are often not photographers, they're gear reviewers, and I'm sure they're out. There's probably 50 gear reviews on the M11 that are going to tell you every single thing that this camera does and every menu option and all that. I don't care. It's full frame 60 megapixel with 2 cards. That seems pretty great. The problem for me, and this will always be a problem, and I don't envision this changing anytime soon, I would never spend $10,000 on a camera body, because for me to go to a project, I cannot responsibly go with a single camera, especially a single digital camera that's filled with electronics, and these things break and they go bad and they get hot and they get cold or they get wet, or you drop one and then you're stuck, and what are you gonna do? Am I gonna fly to Peru and then get in a 4-wheel drive and drive 16 hours up into the Andes to work on a project about a small community that lives above 17,000 feet with one camera? No, because if something happens to that camera, now what? 16 hours back into Lima to try to find a replacement for an M11? I don't think so. So to me, it's 2 bodies and 2 lenses minimal to do a trip like that. And I just can't spend $20,000 on camera bodies. Okay, question number 11. How do I feel about galleries, photo galleries? I rarely go to photo galleries anymore. I find that the photo gallery system for professional photographers is one of the most fickle things you are ever going to see in your life. And this is not something that's spoken about a lot in public. Photographers will come and say, you know, I have a terrible relationship with my gallery. Even though they're represented by the gallery, they may not get shown by the gallery. It's a weird system. And oftentimes when I walk in a photo gallery, the person, first of all, they're too quiet, they're too stoic, they're too considered. Everything's quiet, nobody's saying a word. You walk in and the person at the counter gives you a once-over, and in their mind, they're trained to think to themselves, are they gonna buy something? Is this person a collector, is they a buyer? And if they sort of pigeonhole you and say you're not gonna buy, you're not a collector, no one talks to you. And so I don't like the environment. I think the photo gallery is something that should have been reinvented decades ago, and I'm waiting for someone out there to really do it in a good way. There are exceptions. I know a gallerist in LA who is a wonderful human being. And I met him probably 30 years ago when I first went to LA. I walked into his gallery. He was in his office. I was kind of petrified. It was dead quiet, big show on the wall. I was the only person in the gallery. And he had a picture above his desk that I was very interested in, but I looked at him and I was like, I'm not going in there. There's no way. He saw me out of the periphery of his eye and he goes, what are you doing? And I was like, yeah, I want to see that. And he was like, well, come on in. And he's like, sit down. And we talked for like an hour. Ever since that day, no matter where I see him in the world, he will stop what he's doing and he comes over and he goes, hey, I got something you should look at. If you're going to collect right now, you should think about these 3 people. Or if these are outside your price range, you should get one of their books. Get their book, get this person, keep your eye on this person. This person just got a piece in a permanent collection, and if you like their work and it speaks to you and you want to start collecting, that's a good person. And he'll say, what are you doing? What are you up to? And I'll say, oh, I'm working on this project, that this and that, it's conceptual. He'll go, bring it by the gallery. And I'm like, I don't want to bring it by because I don't want a gallery show and it's intimidating and I don't really want to be in that space. And he'll be like, no, bring it by. I want to see it. I want to look at it. That's rare. That's a good gallery. My advice is to find your version of that gallery. Meet the owner, meet the staff, develop a relationship and say to them, look, I'm interested in knowing what's good, what's not, why is that the case? If I want to collect, how do I do it? How do I look at collecting as an investment, not only as something that if I see a photograph and engaging with it, is there a secondary component to that of like collecting as an investment? Good gallerists will do that. The people who give you the cold shoulder, who don't want you there, they just want your money and they want you to leave, just blow those people off because it's just not fun hanging out with them. Okay, last question, number 12, I believe it is. Someone asked me if I had 1 year to live, what would I do? And in their mind, they were like, you're gonna blow all your money and travel around the world and see how many countries you can see, and you're gonna go to the South Pacific and sit on a beach and drink Mai Tais. And I was like, if I had a year to live, I've had a good life. I have no complaints. And every horrible thing that's happened to me, for the most part, is my own fault. And I'm married. So I think what I would do is if I had a definitive hard out a year from now, I would probably go somewhere for a short amount of time. And I'd probably go to a warm climate somewhere and be able to relax a little bit. It would be just my wife and I. But then that's it. And I would come home and I would work to maximize my savings so that it would make my wife's life easier. because it's going to be hard because I'm such an amazing guy. I mean, to lose me would be like your soul falling out on the ground. No, not really. My wife would like not skip a beat. She'd be like rocking without me. But I would want it to be as easy for her as possible in terms of the finances. So I would spend the rest of my existing time trying to figure out, and I have friends in the financial world, and I would reach out to them and say, look, got a bit of a situation here, need your help, want to invest this. How do I maximize the benefit for her so that she can go live the rest of her life? Because my guess is my wife is a tiger, man. If someone said you had a year to live to her, she would just rip that person in half and be like, I'm telling you, I'm dictating the rules here. So that's a Q&A. Remember, I'm one guy with one opinion. I have a weird history around this photography thing, so take it for what it is. And my goal is not to enrage viewers, that would suck, or to like point fingers at people. But there are delineations and separations in this business and industry, which I find fascinating. Oftentimes, these are not better than one another, they're just different. So anyway, that's it. I appreciate the time, and we'll be back.